Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I'm, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, and with me, I've got a special guest. You'd have seen the last two episodes, I spoke to two other international fans of the year from the UK who got to announce their team's draft pick on stage. And with me, I've got the final of the three from the UK that did it. With me today, making his debut on the show, is Packers fan and Packers International Fan of the Year, Dan Hanbridge. Dan, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you, mate. I'm a bit jet lagged and on a bit of a come down after the draft because it was honestly the most amazing couple of days of my entire life. So yeah, I'm a bit down at the moment. Now it's all over.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's like any sort of holiday blues you must get. It's just you must be thinking, especially when it gets to, or today is Thursday, and you must be thinking, right, a week ago the draft was starting. I was heading to Detroit. I was in Detroit, and now it's been a week and it's all over. And before you know it, you'll be thinking, God, it's been a year since I did that, and it's
Yeah,
been
yeah, yeah.
10 years, and then, yeah, it'll just fly by now. But you always have that memory to look back on.
Absolutely. It was unbelievable. And I'm sure everybody said it, but just thank you to the Packers for selecting me. And it was a dream come true for a very, very big Packers fan. Yeah.
You mentioned they're big Packers fan. Let's take you right back to the start. NFL fan in the UK, most haven't got any sort of loyalties to a place in America. So, what made you, out of all the 32 teams in the NFL, go with the Packers?
It's a bit of a random story to be honest. When I was a kid, I was 7 or 8. It was like 1997, 1998. First time I was ever going on holiday to America, and my we were going and kind of you grow up watching those films like Rudy and the Little Giants, and you kind of have an interest in the NFL. So whilst I was there, it was the only thing I wanted. I weren't bothered about Disney. I was like, I just want an NFL jersey. So my family took me into a store, and I've still got it. And I picked out this Brett Favre jersey.
Oh, amazing.
So whenever I do anything NFL, if anyone's ever on my Instagram and I'm holding this random child's jersey, it's mine. And I picked out Favre, I picked out the Packers. Then as I sort of grew up, kind of getting into the sport, I just had that jersey. So that was just the team that I watched and the team that I looked out for. And then it's just stuck with me. So I've never really had any interest in any other teams. It's always just been the Packers sort of growing up.
Yeah, I think there's a few that do that in the UK. I think especially it does happen with the Raiders hat quite a lot. A lot of people will see it in a
Yeah,
Sports Direct or Primark, and I'll see a Raiders hat, and when they get into sport, that's it. But
yeah,
Green Bay is not exactly it's not like a New York or LA or I mean, not it's not exactly a tourist destination.
yeah,
I think the whole fan ownership thing that obviously brings people in.
yeah.
Obviously, Favre and Rodgers have in the last 20, 30 years. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I've not had anyone yet have that story. So that is, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky that obviously as a kid, I had no idea who Brett Favre was. We'd won the Super Bowl 2 years before. So I'm very, very lucky that that is the team that I picked out because they are the best team in the NFL, I think.
Well, history will say in the last 10 years, maybe not. Right, so obviously the whole reason you got picked for the draft was because you were named International Fan of the Year. Now,
Yeah.
how was that experience, and how did that come about? How did you become International Fan of the Year?
Again, it was really, really random that my girlfriend and I are content creators and we do different bits around the NFL and my love for the NFL, but that had nothing to do with it. We got tickets for the Bills and the Jags at Tottenham. We'd gone down to London and we were sat in the stadium and it flashed up on the board saying that they're doing this competition as International Fan of the Year. There was nothing to do with prizes or anything like that. We were just sat looking at it. It's one of them cliche stories where she was like, why don't you just do it? Like, you've got nothing to lose. So we filled out the application and then I think it was around March time this year, really randomly just got an email from the Packers sort of saying, would you like to hop on a Zoom call? And we were so skeptical, thinking, it can't be real. It's just something odd about it. And then the minute we went on the Zoom and we were there with the Packers, and they kind of explained like, hey, it was that application, and they saw my story about being a Far fan and when I was a kid, and yeah, that's how it all came about, which is really, really random but amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to be a fan, but then to get named International Fan of the Year,
Yeah,
that's just an incredible experience. And of course, part of being a fan for you, would have involved the Super Bowl. That must have
Yeah,
been just an incredible experience because only had a few guests on who have done this. Luke Campbell, friend of the show, he told me he went to Arizona, being friends with a former NFL player, and there's other people like Ash and Dre and George on Sports, but not many have given a story about the Super Bowl. So, was that part of the international fan of the year thing, or was it just you just got lucky and got tickets?
yeah, that was very, very luckily having work connections because my girlfriend and I were very, very lucky that I was wearing a Favre jersey on holiday, and one of her fans in commas was kind of like, "Oh my gosh, I work for the NFL. I never knew Dan was a Packers fan," and that started off a little bit of a relationship of us doing content for NFL UK. And we were really, really lucky that a job came up with Marriott, and part of the deal with Marriott was to go to the Super Bowl. And the minute it came up, it was a nightmare because um, Marriott only wanted Lauren, and I'm the massive NFL fan, and Lauren was like, "Guys, I can't go to a Super Bowl without Dan. Something's got to happen." So we were on pins for months and months and months, kind of sat waiting and waiting and waiting. And then, like a couple of weeks before, they were like, "Brilliant! There's a ticket there. You can do the content together," and off you go. And it was honestly the most surreal experience of my entire life because of course I wore a Packers jersey. Of course I wore my cheese head. And I think I was the only person in the stadium rocking a Packers jersey. So I got a few boos, sorry. Got a couple of people making digs at me, but the whole experience was unbelievable. And I think getting to a Super Bowl is lucky. And I always have to remind myself that. But I think for anyone that's interested in it, the best thing about the experience for me was when the couple of days running up to the Super Bowl, the NFL had free events on throughout the entire weekend. So we were kind of walking up the Vegas Strip and doing all the touristy bits because we weren't working. And we heard a voice, and I was like, "That sounds like Dan Marino." And we literally walked down round the corner. Dan Marino was just on a stage doing an
Wow.
interview, and it was something that Doritos were doing, and these were all over the city. So we just sat down eating a cheeseburger, watching Dan Marino, and then Jordan Love came out, and we were like five people in the audience, and Jordan Love was there, and we were like, "Oh my god, nice to meet you." And he was like, "Yeah," we were having a chat with him. Jerry Rice came out, and these were happening all over the city. And I think for any NFL fan, I will never make it to a Super Bowl, but I think that experience has made me think if it does go to a major city like New Orleans, I'd probably go just for the experience because there was so much to do, so much interaction with players, and Roger Goodell was walking down the Hollywood Strip, and we were like, that's Roger Goodell. Oh my god! So for a fan, even if you can't get to the event, everything around it that the NFL does to promote it is unbelievable and well worth taking the trip for, I think.
Yeah, I think it's part of my potential plans next year because
Yeah,
very lucky to have a friend who lives there, and there's a few of us that are part of His Nation UK that he's also a part of. One of them turns 40 this year. Shout out to Lee,
oh wow.
and he wants to for his 40th go to New Orleans and experience that Super Bowl atmosphere. And I think you know we know how expensive hotels can be in taxi. So if you've
Yeah,
got someone that lives in the place it's happening, then it just
100%.
makes it so much more affordable, and get your flights in early enough and don't make sure
Yeah,
to go on like a cheaper day and just go on a random day. And I think that's the way to do it. I'm hoping, yeah, obviously through this podcast or through my work
yeah,
connections,
yeah,
I'm hoping that one day I'll be as lucky as you and get to go to the
yeah.
game and hopefully it involves the Dolphins. But I think there's not much chance of that happening at the moment with the Chiefs being in the AFC. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's well worth doing though, because I sound really ungrateful saying this, but meeting Jordan Love eclipsed the Super Bowl for me. And I
yeah.
was like, to have that interaction with my quarterback, I was thinking that is unbelievable. But there was a handful of people there, and for a Dolphins fan, having that interaction with Dan Marino, it's it's worth its weight just to go out there and experience the build up to it. But the game was very, very special, very special.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned there about Dan Reed. I mean, I mentioned Lee a second ago. Him and a friend of mine, Martin, who are part of Fifth Nation UK, they were in a random bar in Frankfurt ahead of the Chiefs Dolphins game in Germany. They went to a random pub. It wasn't the one that all the Dolphins meet. It's like a random one. It wasn't the main one where the Dolphins meetup was.
Yeah.
No one was in there apart from a few people, and Dan Marino just rocks up, not planned, just rocks up in this bar, and they have
Mm.
like an hour chat with him about not even NFL stuff. So, and for a big fan group who most of them are fans because of him, that must be
Yeah,
just
I
incredible
love
experience. Um,
the one thing that absolutely crucified me about it was I've been from Manchester. I'm a massive United fan, and my childhood
Ooh.
City were City were irrelevant for years and years and years. And when I was talking to him, I was like, "Oh, where are you from?" I was like, "I'm from Manchester." He's like, "What, Manchester City?" And I thought that is a dagger in my heart. That, but yeah, definitely go out there and make the most of it.
Absolutely, and you got to experience, watching the Super Bowl with some content creators, the likes of
Yeah,
Craig Mitch and Bambino Becky. What were they like to work with, or just hang around with?
they were honestly the nicest people in the world, and they again in a really lucky and fortunate situation where they were creating content for NFL UK. So to have a group of just really nice people experiencing something for the first time, it made it even better. And there, Craig's now he's now a Chiefs fan because the first game he'd ever watched, luckily, was a Chiefs game. We were having banter about it, saying you've got no idea how much of a bandwagon you are now. But he's rocking his Mahomes jersey and he's loving life. So yeah,
Yeah, I did see his Instagram, and I was thinking, yeah, he's probably going to be a converted Chiefs fan now. Did
100%.
Becky
Yeah,
did
yeah,
Becky enjoy it, or I didn't really see
yeah. Loved it.
her
She
content?
as part of her content creation, they'd sent her to a Dallas Cowboys game to kind of promote
Oh,
the game on her YouTube channel. Because the NFL are massively trying to do that now, sort of to get new people into the sport. So she got a Cowboys game and then she got the Super Bowl. So she was like loving life because even as a Packers fan, to go and watch the Cowboys in Dallas would be very, very special. So she loved it, and we caught up with her during the draft, and she was rocking her Cowboys jersey, loving life. So she's
oh,
fully
she was
invested
there
in
as
the sport.
well. She was at the
No, she was back at home. She was catching up bits at home.
uh,
So she's fully invested. She's a fan now.
amazing, amazing stuff. Of course, mentioned being a fan. You've been to Lambeau Field. I did have a look through
Yeah,
your Instagram. I mean, I don't know what game you went to, but how was that experience? Because
it
I know when I
was.
went to the game there with Ash, that was just I found that even as a non-Packers fan, as a neutral, probably cheering on the Titans more than the Packers that day. I loved that. I thought it was like I think I loved Arrowhead, but I think I enjoyed Lambeau the most because that was just such a magical experience. Something you've seen for years and years. Seeing that in the flesh and being there on a snow game as well, partial snow game, was just a
Yeah,
fantastic moment for me. So I can imagine for you, as a Packers fan, your first time going Lambeau Field must have been just such a great experience.
that that is the greatest sporting event I've ever witnessed live, and I've been to a lot of United games and sort of had the glory years growing up, but seeing Lambo was unreal. And it was Lauren and I just started dating. We've been with each other for maybe a couple of months. And there's a fan group that I follow on Facebook who are the UK and Irish Packers. And they do a trip every single year. And I'd had my eye on this trip for a couple of years. And it popped up, and I was like, oh. And I just mentioned it to her. I was like, I'm going to go to Green Bay. Do you want to come? And she was like, where is it? I was like, ignore that. Just give me a yes or she was like, yeah, let's do it. So it was amazing. And it's with touchdown trips. So
Oh yeah.
shout out to touchdown trips because they are brilliant. And we got a week in Green Bay. We got the game. We got the Hall of Fame tour. We met Matt Murphy, the president. It was a dream come true. And to walk into Lambeau, I still get goosebumps thinking about it and talking about it. It was the most emotional experience of my entire life. And it was Rodgers' last season, and we played the Cowboys. We beat them in overtime with a field goal. And it was meeting people around Green Bay because you don't get many UK people visiting the city. Everybody was apologising to us. They were like, "Oh, you've made such a long journey to see us get beat by the Cowboys because we were playing awful at the time." So to see him win in overtime, especially, was a dream. I would have hated to have made that trip and get beat, but we won. So it made it even more special.
Well, I can only look on an envy because I've been to 5 Dolphins games in person, one in London, four in the States. I'm 0-5 at live
Oh,
Dolphins
God.
games. It's a shocking record. I mean, I know I've seen us play the Eagles and the Bengals and all these good teams.
Good teams. And
The Jags was the one where it wasn't a good team because they hadn't won a game in ages at that point. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, so I think like the tip is people think I'm some sort of curse. The Dolphins fans I'm friends with, they like to tease me and say you're a curse, you bring bad luck. But I think the secret is just next year go and watch them play the Panthers or go and watch them play
yeah,
whoever we're
yeah,
playing this year and having a bad season. Just go to that game and just try and break the curse.
we looked at going last year, and because we started off terrible, it's like it's a lot of money, it's a long trip. What's the point? And the game that we should have gone to, Jordan Love had his best game of the season at home. I was just watching at home, like what a stupid decision that was. So we're going to try and go this year. That we're going to try and make it back out there when they announce the tour that they're going to do.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm looking to do either a Dolphins home game or Dolphins road game, and I've narrowed it down to Indianapolis, Seattle, New York, or Green Bay because we are playing you at Lambeau this year, and
Yeah, yeah,
I'd love to come back. And I've kept in contact with my Airbnb hosts on the app. We've sort of now and again we'll keep in touch. So obviously, I look to stay here again. So it depends on the schedule, God, because I don't think I fancy going away for Christmas. I never like to be away
yeah,
from home, but certainly if a game in Seattle, Indianapolis, or Green Bay is in September or early October when the London games aren't on,
yeah.
I'm all in, and I think I'd love to make at least one trip, or even just to Miami. So for me, I'm keeping an eye out. I believe it's next week. I think they're
I
losing
think
to
it is
next
next week.
Thursday,
Yeah,
so I'm going to keep a close eye. Love that time of year. 'Cause I love the schedule, these videos they now do on Teams social medias, and I'm looking forward to seeing who we get and sort of
yeah,
what time of year we get them. Now, finally, the main reason you're here is your draft experience. Now, you were very active on social media during your time in the draft.
yeah.
Just how was that experience going to the draft, and then of course going on stage and making a draft pick, not just in front of a stage, but in front of the largest ever audience at any NFL draft?
Mental. Mental. I they it was a really, really like difficult decision because we were like, oh my god, this is amazing. But the draft next year is in Green Bay. So we were like, oh, we're not gonna get to do it in Green Bay. So we were a little bit like, Detroit is somewhere I never would have gone. It's not on my bucket list of American cities to see. And we fell in love with it. And that is a genuine, honest reaction, that because we do a lot of content creation, and we were kind of putting it out there, what restaurants to try, where to kind of, we use that to our advantage to try and see as much of the city as we possibly could. And honestly, Detroit is the best city I've ever visited. It beats Vegas, it beats New York, it beat Green Bay, it beat everything because the people were unbelievable. The whole experience of wearing my Green Bay shirts, you get people coming up to you, giving you a bit of aggro, giving you a bit of stick, and then completely change. You be like, nice to meet you. What you doing here? So we've made friends out there that we'll have for the rest of our lives. Really, really nice people. But when we got to the draft, because they'd got all this stick for wearing a Packers jersey, but this is my moment now. So they had on the last day, they got all the international fans together, and they were kind of like, teams might trade up and stuff is going to happen. So just be ready, kind of. If something happens, you've got to be ready to run. So I said to my girlfriend Lauren, I was like, right, I'm just going to go in, sit in a cubicle for a minute. And she was like, why? I was like, I've had that much aggro off this sitter. I've got to hit them with something. So I sat in the cubicle, sat down, and was scrolling through all these things. Like, how can I get him? I've got Bears still suck. Got you never got to a Super Bowl. Dan Campbell's a bum. And I thought, no, no, no. Just gonna hit him with a go, Pack, go. So I had it written down because I was so nervous. And as I was getting back to my chair, this producer from the NFL with his headset came running down and was like looking around, looking around. And I kind of just made eye contact with him. And then I heard Green Bay's on the clock. And he just pointed at me, gripped me, and we ran backstage. And I was like, what's happening? What's happening? And as they get backstage, they have a screen to where all the draft picks are called into in Detroit. They had a screen in New York and they had a screen in NFL head office. I was just kind of stood there going, what on earth is going on? And this woman came up to me. She was like, right, chill. The Jets have traded. You're on the clock. You've got about 3 minutes. And I was like, right, brilliant. So I whipped my iPhone out. She was like, no, 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 no phones, no phones. I was like, oh my God, okay. So I was literally just stood there and went, right, Daniel, compose yourself, because this is probably the biggest crowd you're ever going to talk in front of. And then she was counting down in my ear and went, right, go for it. And I've got to say, this is a shout out to the people of Detroit, because as soon as I stepped foot on that stage, I've never heard so many boos in my entire life. It was deafening. I just felt all of this noise and shouting coming at me that it was just mint. And that is a testament to the NFL and Detroit and everything, that the whole community and city was just brilliant. We were meeting cops, we were meeting firemen, everybody was just stopping you and talking to you and giving you the time of day, that it was just such a friendly atmosphere. And we are on a massive come down, more so from the city, because it was just brilliant. Everyone were great and the Lions fans were great, and yeah, the experience was just brilliant. It really was.
Yeah, I'm sure myself can speak for a lot of people listening to this podcast today that we can look on and envy at your experience. I know that you had obviously a special experience, and yeah, that will live with you forever.
Yeah, yeah. I think whatever Green Bay fan gets it for next year,
Mm.
I say just properly whoever the international fans are next year, say fully make the most of it, because that's what the content side really helped us. That there was some really like old school Detroit restaurants that as a tourist you never would have heard of, but interacting with the local community and being like, where should we go for dinner tonight? That made it even better. And just whatever Green Bay fan, sorry, gets it, fully make the most of it. Because after me, there was James on stage. Me and my girlfriend were sat watching him, and with his bear stuff, we were like, he's took the moment there, because it's never going to happen unless you become, you work for the NFL or you become Roger Goodell. That's never going to happen ever again. So make the most of it and give the fans some stick, because I was buzzing I did that. It was great.
Yeah, and James talked about it on Tuesday that how much he had to just do it, had to just get on with it and just do it and just make the most, as you say, making the most of the moment,
Yeah.
because that's never going to happen again. Because even if
Oh, never.
they won't give the same person the award twice in 2 years, unless
No,
no one else applies. So yeah, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity that you can't really miss. Now, before we do go, you mentioned before you are a content creator. For those that aren't aware of your work, how can they find you on socials?
So we're on TikTok, and TikTok's our big one. And my handle is Dan_Hanbridge, and then that's the same on Instagram. And we do a lot of NFL content, a lot of lifestyle content, and a lot of travel in America. That is our as a couple that we love visiting the States. And I've now subtly got it into Lauren's head that whenever we go, we've got to get an NFL game in there. Because other than being a Green Bay fan, like what you were saying, there's certain stadiums that I think I want to stand in there, or want to kind of experience that moment. So that's mostly the content that we do.
Absolutely. And if you haven't already, give them a follow and do check them out for all NFL or lifestyle content. But that has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast. With me today, Andy Davis, of course, your host, and Dan Hanbridge. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys for the next episode. Before we go, Dan, give us your best Go Pack Go.
Oh, Detroit. If anyone from Detroit is still listening, go Pack, go!